starting with December 2020. So I'm Chitra Dorai. I am an AI scientist and CEO of Amicus Brain, which is devoted to bringing technology to ease the pain of caregiving and taking the complexity out. The leaders who have assembled here today and who could not join send their best wishes. We are all members of a national organization called the NAWRB's Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Council. So if you're joining us for the first time, quick overview about the organization and us. The organizational entity that is brought together is Desiree Patno's baby, and it was founded by her, and she is the CEO of this council, and she's a leading voice for women focused on advancing gender equality. We also have, I'm going to go in random order, so no particular, so we have Tammy Bonnell, CEO of Exit Realty Corporation International, and a 30+ year veteran in the real estate industry. And we are also joined by Kelly Comet, formerly at UPS, former Vice President of Corporate Inside Sales. Now she brings her firepower with her role on the board of Marine Applied Research and Exploration. And we have Teresa Palacio Smith, who's the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Home Services of America, a Berkshire Hathaway affiliate. And we are joined also by Tasha Leniger, Chief Human Resource Officer for Dialpad. Not the least, Erica Courtney, US Army Lieutenant Colonel and President of Zulu Time and founder of 2020 Vet. So we are delighted to be here today to discuss our leadership principles, the last but the most important one, I think of it as lead by example. So let me set it up and let the ladies begin. So I wanted to, when we crafted these as a team, it seems like years ago, but it was fall of 2019. I think we have all aged considerably due to COVID. The 1 year seems like a decade. So when we came together and crafted this, the first one, if you, some of you have joined us consistently may remember, it was about acknowledged trailblazers. And now it's nicely bookended by lead by example. So we all have to be personally accountable in our values, behaviors, and culture. And at the same time, we are influenced and shaped by the leaders who have gone and paved the road ahead of us. So I felt that when I went through the entire series of leadership principles, what a lovely way that we have started and we are ending with it. So today, I know leading by example is actually in a way trite. It's often looked upon as a buzzword. But what we can do today is peel the layers of leading by example in what I thought in a structured fashion. For example, values, which are the compass, moral compass of what is right and what is wrong. And values beget behaviors in terms of how we act upon these values, how we model ourselves in everything we do. And finally, our behaviors become the cultural norms and expectation of the community we live in. So I thought we can model our discussion today, craft our discussion today in terms of values, behaviors, and culture. So what I would like for us to do, ladies, share with us and highlight the most important. All of us are values driven in one way or in one form or the other, and share with us the most important value you live by personally, professionally, and in your community, and how do you model that with your actions, and how has it impacted you in your familial relationships, in your professional relationships, and in your community. So with that background, I invite you all to share, like we always do, very candidly and very authentic. Our conversations have always been very authentic in this entire series. So Erica, you want to go first?
Sure. I'll start with, being a military officer, leading by example is definitely not just a phrase, it's what we live by. It's doing what's right when no one's looking. It's not only meeting the standards, but exceeding the standards. and you're talking about values, and to bring in leading by example and a moral compass, the Army has ethics, which is coined by the acronym leadership. So it's loyalty, duty, respect, and then you have selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. So that's what guides soldiers, leaders, and when you lead, go back to what's most important to me. I think integrity, which creates that authenticity. So if you're not true to yourself, true to your people, knowing who you are and yourself, it's very difficult to lead. And as you know, in the military, we're not leading people in a nice air-conditioned building. We're expecting them to, go to places all around the world within 24 hours, high stress situations, cold, hungry, tired, hot, away from their families. And I will kind of end it with this. When I transitioned from active duty to normal world, and then, later joined the reserves, I was taking an MBA, and I had one of my classmates, and she says, it was a leadership class. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could teach this in my sleep. It's just pounded into you. She goes, what do you guys in the military know about leadership and leading by example? You guys just tell somebody what to do, and you have rank and they do it. And I'm like, all right, deep breath. And I'm like, okay, well, have you ever had to lead people in these kinds of situations? Again, where they're tired, when they're hungry, when they're, exhausted. If people don't respect you and you don't lead by example, they will perform the bare minimum, just as they will in corporate America. Mm-hmm. So how do you get people to perform better? One is do what you expect others to do. And again, try to always develop yourself and others. And it's amazing when you know your people and you take care of your people, and when you're authentic, then they will go above and beyond, inside or outside the military. So there's repercussions outside the military. You have an employee not doing something, well, guess what? They can get fired. In the military, I'll shuffle them somewhere else, or, they'll be disciplined. But again, this is something that I take very seriously, and 20% of every dollar the Army has spent on me has been for professional development and leadership, and a lot of hands-on, slapping around, learning as you go. So yes, it's really just having integrity, being authentic, taking care of your people, and doing what's right when no one's looking.
Yes, well said. So when leaders don't model what they preach, the hypocrisy is very self-evident, and you lose the respect, and the values go out of the door in any organization, in any setup. So thank you, Erica, for setting that up. Anyone would like to comment or talk about a different value? Kelly?
Sorry about that. I was on mute listening to Erica. You summed up so many great comments and so many great points, Erica. I think it's sad because so often in the media, we see the pictures of the poor leaders, right? We see the pictures of the fall from grace, the CEOs that don't walk the talk, the politicians that show the hypocrisy. I mean, it's everywhere. And seldom do we really get to see the pictures of the leaders who are leading by example, who are doing the right thing. And there are many, many of them. And I agree with all of the character qualities that Erica mentioned that I think are just so important as a leader. And one of them, it's an old saying, walk the talk. That kind of is the same type of feeling. I think just getting down to the front line people is so critical, because when you get to know your front line people and you start to understand them, you can be much more authentic. You can be much more part of the development of the team, and you understand your people, because leading by example definitely means standing up for your team when things get tough. And whether you're in the military or whether you're in the corporate office, sometimes standing up for your people and doing the right thing is extremely difficult. I mean, I'm sure all of us have faced the time when, what you were saying wasn't the easy way to go. It wasn't the easy thing to do, and it wasn't the easy thing to say. And I think that's the critical piece about leading by example, having courage, enough courage to stand up and say, hey, we need to consider something else, or have we thought of this, or is this really the right path? I think that's truly leading by example also.
Yeah, well said. Tammy?
I have a tattoo on my back that says, be true to yourself and you'll be able to lead others. Thankfully, it's written in Japanese, so it's a lot smaller than that. But I think that it is so important that you are very true to yourself. And, you know, just for the people that are paying attention and listening to this right now, it's so important as you, whether you're beginning your journey, you're in the middle of your journey, or you're as old as some of us are, it's really important to find friends, co-workers, people that you, just like all of us working together on National Diversity Leadership Inclusion Council, the same set of values, attracting that level of people to yourself. But even when you get involved business-wise, that culture fits your belief system. You'll be able to work so well in a culture that really fits your belief system. It has to be that way in order for you to succeed. If you are looking at just profits, you're looking at just the bottom line, if you're looking at just how much money you want to make, you're probably never going to find, there's a very big difference between happiness and fulfillment. You're not going to find the level of fulfillment that you'll find if you're not being true to yourself. You're just going to get a job to get a job. Sometimes we have to do that, and times in our lives that we have to do that, but it's really important to make sure that you stick to where you are, regardless of what everybody else is doing around you, if you don't have that opportunity to be in that space right now. Our organization was built on human potential, so everything has to fall around human potential. How people grow their mindset, the affirmation principle, how they understand about good nutrition and focusing on good health, how they grow as leaders. And every single bit of it has to be around that. So perfect example, because you have to lead by example no matter what. And I completely agree with Erica that you can't ask someone to do something that you haven't been willing to do yourself. And it is so important that people that follow you, there has to be a respect line there, and there isn't going to be a respect line there if you're just telling people what to do. You have to have the self-discipline to be willing to do it. And as soon as you stop, because we see a lot of people that settle, they get to a certain point in their life and then they settle and they stop, they just lost respect. They're no longer growing, and people aren't going to follow somebody that doesn't continue to grow. So it's really important that you grow, but you grow within your value system. And I'll give you a great example. During the worst recession since the Depression, you know, we watched people lay off people in droves, and they were just looking at their balance sheet, and they cut off people like people didn't matter at all, that human beings had put in all this time. We sat down as a company, and our company originated in Canada. So we sat down as a company and said, all right, who are we as a company? Well, we're a company built on human potential. Okay, that means we can't lay anybody off because we just said they're too valuable. And we need to demonstrate that by doing it. And as leaders, we need to outsell and outthink our way out of this recession. And we did. And so when that happened, when COVID hit, and we watched the same thing of everybody just looking at a balance sheet, we're just going to cut off bodies, and not even face to face for so many people. We said, what are we going to do that's going to be different than that? Well, our people are too valuable. And by the way, for anybody thinking of laying anybody off, you're going to spend 50% of your current labor training the next new people to come in, when you probably already have some really great people there. So asking yourself effective questions to figure out how to make it work makes much more sense. So instead of laying people off, we literally launched a stimulus package worth in excess of $50 million within 48 hours, but fitting our culture so that they had mindset. We were teaching them Eckhart Tolle, yoga, meditation, and all of the things to ramp up and be a better business person when they got across to the other side. I think it's so important and you know, catching people doing something good, you've got to be that example in every facet of your life. It can't be separate. I've witnessed a lot of people that are one person here and then another person here. You've really got to be that person all the time. And especially with technology the way it is, people can see you all the time. And that's why it has to be so true to really exactly who you are.
Yeah. Respect for human potential. That directly takes us to Tasha, who lives by this every day as Chief Human Resource Officer. So Tasha, your take on this?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, you guys have touched on so many important concepts and things that I think about like on a, hourly basis. I would say, it's an interesting time to lead, male or female, right? Like it's an interesting time in history, especially in technology, though I know all of our roles are touched by this pandemic and sort of the shift to working from home. And there's an awful lot of trust that's required to make that shift. There's a lot of sort of faith that you're putting into your employees that are saying, like, we are betting on you to manage all of the complexity of what's happening at home with your family and health, and also do the job that we're asking you to do, with like precision and dedication. And that's really hard for most leaders to make that shift. And I'm not sure I've done it well, and I'm certainly know it's not, and I've not done it perfectly, even though, I'm in the role of trying to enable all 1,000 of our dialers. So I think the first thing is sort of admitting to ourselves where we have, that we're imperfect. And I tell that to my team all the time. Like, the number one mission for me is to be honest with them that I don't have the answer. And if we're relying on me to have the answer to all these problems, we're in big trouble, right? And so I say that all the time because I want them to know that good ideas have come from every single person in our company, and I need help, And so I think that's like the number one thing that the message that I try to get across in every meeting that I attend and any meeting that I lead. So that sort of humility is an aspect that I hope that I'm leading by example with. That, look, I'm in this role by luck and by grit, and I certainly do not have answers to everything. So I need your help. And so I sort of passionately plead for that partnership from everybody. So admitting that you don't know. The one thing that my teammates know about me is that I'm passionate, and I need that from everybody who works for me. So you can have the pedigree that I don't have, or that our CEO doesn't have, but I don't care about that. Like, we really need you to have that grit, to have that passion. And you can work with, multiple, degrees and MBAs and PhDs. But if you aren't working with dedication and passion, then frankly, there's not a spot on the team. So that trumps all things for me, because I think almost all problems are solved with passion and grit, not necessarily intellect. So in that, I often talk about the fact that my job is not strategic. Like, when I interview people right out of school, they often say, I want to be in a strategic role. And I laugh, and I'm like, strategy at our company is made up of lots of tactics going well, right? That is strategy for us. And so strategy in my role is doing all the big and small jobs really well. There's nothing that's too small for me. And that means there's nothing that's too small for you. We're all doing the big and small jobs. And that's super important. And then kind of the two main principles of our team is bravery, right? Like, don't sort of wither in like silence and victimhood, right? You see something that's not fitting or going well for you or a team or a company, like, have a bias for bravery, right? Like tell us what we're not doing well, what you think could be done better. And there's no one's getting fired over bravery, right? So be brave, and have a bias for action, right? Like, sitting and stewing and contemplating and be strategic, that is not something that's super valued on my team or in our company. So we're going to try a lot of things fast. Our competitors are massive and growing, and it's a land grab. And so being overly strategic and taking a lot of time to think about what the next step could and should be, and analyzing and A/B testing and all that, we don't do that. Like, we need to move fast and fail fast. And so those are sort of the main things that make up the culture of our team, and the things that I try to live every day, so that my team feels like they should.
So many values you highlighted there, Dasha. So over to Desiree. What do you consider personally the most important value to live by?
Show by example. Do as Tasha just said. Everyone, unbelievable. This is the heart and soul of why I love what we're doing. So my is that there's nothing, like Tasha said, too small or too big. But in my life as a parent, as a mother of 4 boys, if you can't lead, like Erica said, to they're tired and exhausted, So everything that I've ever done in my life, and I asked my children to do, they've seen me physically do it first, multitude of times. And even at the last minute, midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, oh, I forgot to water. I didn't do this, I didn't that. I go and do it. So they see at the moment that I'm exhausted, did they ever see mom be sick? You know, so all those things to show that even if we're not feeling our best or we're have everything going for us, we always do it, and we keep our wits about ourselves. So showing us into the point of being in that element to where we just can't take one more task on. I sometimes just laugh and sit down and say, bring it on. How much more can you bring on? So show that ability to laugh in diversity, because if we don't, then we're always under stress too much. And I think it's one of the things that have helped me during this time of having those highs and lows that, trust me, I've reached out to every one of you and said, you know, I need this conversation, but it's that value that we can do. And professionally, same thing, you know, is that as the ideas is that no matter what it is, that if it has a deadline, you got to get it done. And the ideas is having that passion and conviction and getting that strength is that you're able to curate that happiness of joy of getting it done, but also seeing how hard you had to work and then say, look at, you finished this. And everyone said you couldn't do it. It's like, really, to be honest, look at the women's movement. Look at what we're dealing with right now. Look at what the accountability of equity, you know, pushback in the professional world, and the gratitude of coming, working with the government. It was one of those things that from a professional level, I had to sacrifice so much to get the respect, because the fact is that why would someone come in and talk to me at a government level and do all these different things when I never asked for money? I never asked for anything back. And now the respect is so incredible, because I showed them the longevity, that I was there for the right reasons. I had the human potential, as Tammy said, when the going gets tough to get going. And here we are in the biggest, in our lifetime, the biggest thing we've ever had dealt with on that strategy. And so to end with one little quick story, I just attended last week called the End Physician, actually it was this week, time flies so fast, you never know what day it is, called End Physician Burnout. And when someone talked earlier about the fact is that, you know, when we're at a so much, when we're down, what does that look like? Well, the front lines, imagine the doctors having to deal with their own, do they go to work, you know, taking care of someone financially, what's going on, how, if they bring it home to their children, or, you know, what's going on in their personal life, the stress of working 24 hours and never coming home for weeks on end. How are they supposed to feel like is that if they have any issues at home, to bring their best self to work and then work those hours and going through it. So to actually have an End Physician Burnout Conference, first of its ever kind, to help the physical of the doctors not retiring or quitting on the spot, and the nurses not quitting because we have such a deficiency. They are the wealth of our health if we don't have someone to see us when we need them. So leading by example, to me, is so many different facets in so many different ways. And I believe that if we help and show up to be there, our best self in person when we need to be there, to help to say that we can help that out, is what I just, it's incredible.
Absolutely. Teresa?
First of all, you made me laugh, which now I'm having to, oh my goodness, what incredible insights that we've received from every single person that has been on this council. And I too, Desiree, am so honored to be part of this group and with these women that are really leading in so many different areas of our field. So for me, you know, my mom used to say, and my mother is somebody that I use as my hero. You know, and she would say it, haz tú mismo lo que quieres que hagan los demás y ellos te seguirán. And what that means is, in everything do yourself what you want others to do, and they will follow you, which I know, Courtney, you know, Erica, you kind of indicated, right? And it was, you know, I was struggling because I coached soccer, and I remember having, you know, how when you're coaching young girls, and I was a young girl myself, you know, trying to get people to do the things that you want them to do, right? And they wouldn't do it. And I'm like, she goes, well, are you doing them? And my mom would say that, because if you do them, they will follow you, right? And so I think that is a beautiful saying that I really have always taken to heart. Early in my career, I have to say, Kelly, I actually saw UPS CEO, and I cannot remember who it was, speak. And I thought, what an insight. He actually was, when he started with UPS, he actually was started as a driver. He went from driver to CEO. And I think that gave him so much credibility because, you mentioned it, each one of you have talked about it, right? How the people that actually make the biggest change in every technology and everything come from the front lines. Those are the people that are actually doing the work. And so if you learn what they're doing and you can lead them and you can hear from them and be present, all of the principles that we've talked about, I think that is the biggest lesson that we can all take away, right? So leading by example, by really getting involved with the people that do the frontline work every single day, that are out there that really can provide you with a lot of insight with what's happening and give you that customer feedback that you need to know what you have to do to change things is really important. At Quicken Loans, I took a tour one year, and Tammy, I'm sure you've done this, and you went through their facility, and they have a lot of isms. And I think one of the things that I found so interesting was in one of the books was there was a big factory where they were having issues with their manufacturing, and they couldn't figure out how to come up with a solution of getting this corrected. And one of their frontline workers, the guy that worked on the front line, actually came up with a fan. He had a fan. Do you remember this, Tammy? They had a fan in the room, and in that fan, it stopped whatever the issue was from sticking, or from the front line of that manufacturing facility. And they were like, how creative, we would have never thought of this. This one person changed the course of this company's productivity because of the things that he was doing. So I think it's really following that lead, making sure that you actually do the work yourself so you can be credible, right? So that you can actually understand what people are going through. And that's one of the ways that you can lead, that leading by example, I think is really important. And, I also love, Tasha, that you said you don't always have to be the expert, right? There are times where you have to say, you know what, I've never done this before. Help, explain the process to me so I can learn better, because that makes you a better leader as well. Being vulnerable, making sure that people see you as genuine, having that genuine heart, that authenticity, that's so important. Because when I took on this role as Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, everyone knows I had no experience in doing that. And I felt a total loss because here I was now leading in that role. And I actually did not come from that background. I wasn't in HR like you, Tasha. I didn't have that background at all. My background was from actually doing the work itself, of working in a real estate company and an organization, and also working in management. So kind of doing both sides of it. And I think that's what allowed me to be more credible, right, in the position, and see it from that eye. So I think a lot of times we can be vulnerable. It's okay. And it's okay to say, hey, I'm learning and I really want to be the very best. And this is how I can do it, is by leading by example and really learning from everyone that's in the team that can help me succeed, because your success is my success.
Absolutely. What a lovely amazing set of values. I started writing and I ran out of paper. Integrity, courage, true to yourself, maximizing respect for human potential, trust and humility, bravery. So I wanted to round it up. I related to everything, especially this humility.
Chitra, sorry to interrupt. Tammy's got to leave. So did you want to say something really going?
I just wanted to add one quick thing, and this was wonderful. Every one of us was born with special gifts, but we all only have a few gifts, right? And so it's always that opportunity it's poetry in motion, watching somebody that has a skill in something that you don't have, and really getting the opportunity to see them. And it's okay to have humility and that indomitable spirit to say, this isn't my lane. That's why I'm counting on you to do it. And I think that so much of leading by example is literally 5 to 10% input, right? That we're whispering in somebody's ear, helping them adjust maybe 5 degrees in the right direction, but allowing them that autonomy to really build what it is that they're talented with. And I think that's just such a huge way to lead by example, because then it makes it okay for them. They don't have to be all things to all people. They don't have to be everything. We were all put here for special purposes, and we do all have special gifts, but we're not gifted in everything. My mom literally would tell me to even for singing happy birthday, just mouth the words, kid. You know, we all only have certain gifts. So I need to go, but this was really a pleasure. And thank you, Chitra, what a great topic.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy, for being there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to follow up with this.
Chitra, can I add one thing too? You know, I think that's why it's so important to have different examples of leadership, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, you talk about our diversity council, all of us are bringing so many different ideas and different thoughts. And again, that's what inclusion is all about, getting those different leadership examples so people have role models to look at and different ways of doing things. And it just makes the whole so much better.
Yeah. So you might have heard this attributed to Mahatma Gandhi, be the change that you wish to see in the world. I chased it up to see whether there is, because it's sometimes it's misquoted. So when I started looking it up, actually he said something even more profoundly that is very germane to today's conversation. He says, if we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. And for me, this is the next thing he says is even more profound. We need not wait to see what others do. For me, that summarizes what leading by example is. We do not have to wait for someone else to model, someone else to put into practice the value that we want to live by. We need to be the first one to model. So that when Tasha said about that humility, about saying I do not, that is such an important value to impart to the organization, to our children, right? It is okay, because the humility of saying I don't know goes hand in hand with the courage and the confidence that you recognize that you don't know. And people often miss that. It's not a false dichotomy that humility and confidence, they don't go together. They actually go together. The very ability to say that I don't know actually shows that you're courageous and confident to recognize that and to be open to learning learning the new skill. So we went through a lot of values, right? What I would like us to do is, because the values drive the way we live by, we act on. So can we now get to the next level of how did you lead by example with these values? What has been your experience? What has been the hardest? Or is it always easy to model the right behavior? Especially as leaders in the organization, we face countless challenges in terms of where we get challenged on doing the right thing. So how have you tackled that? How have you tried to be the best example of the value that you would love to teach your children, teach our community, be part of our community? Teresa, you want to go? Blue and
Sure.
blue.
Yeah, absolutely.
And picking
So I'm
right.
going to, yeah, and I'm going to give you a really just direct example of something that happened to me. You know, when I was during the recession, 2008, 2010, I actually became the president of the NAWRB Atlanta chapter, which is probably the toughest time for our organization and for anyone to do or try to change things or turn around. We had a lot of Hispanic agents that were dropping and getting out of the business. And so I actually had a mentor by the name of Juan Martinez, and I have to give him a shout out. Juan Martinez is one of the owners of an organization, a company. He was the president of NAWRB prior to my becoming president on the national level, but he actually was our mentor, and he mentored all the chapters. And he says, you know, you got to change your entire chapter. You got to change the way you're doing things in order for you to get more people involved and to get, grow your membership. And I remember there was a lot of negative about change. There's always, right? Well, we got to change it to make it better. And your board is not always on board with you. So I said, okay, if I've got to do this, I'm going to actually do it myself. And so I'll do everything that I need to do to get to where we need to do based on the recommendations, because our board really wasn't all on board with what we wanted to do to make it. We had to change everything. So I found, look, I did everything just to get it off the ground. And I said, let's just do it once. Let's see if it works. And so we did, and we had the most successful event. And from that moment on, we grew our chapter, and every event thereafter was a success as far as attendance, growing our membership. But it actually took me going and doing it so that I could lead by example, because I had to believe the change I wanted to be, right? And so I think that was one way that I can tell you really was so eye-opening for me, because it took me to actually do it and realize, hey, if I want others to follow, I've got to do it myself and show them, right, that we can do this. And that's a real example of how I think, really truly changed the course of our organization, actually changed the course of my life. It was a life-changing moment, because with that, I was asked to come on the board for the National NAWRB Council, and then became national president, which I think led me to the position I'm in today. So, I think it's a really true example of something that I did that really was very helpful for me and everyone else.
Yeah. Erica, what has been your experience of leading by example?
I don't think the women on this conference are typical. I think that we're pretty confident. We've blazed some trails. But Tasha's word, which is one of my favorite words, is grit. And with grit comes perseverance and resilience, pushing through whatever the obstacles are. And then once you sort of get to that point in life, then you start developing confidence, because you've overcome multiple challenges. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, there's not much I can't do. Not because I'm egotistical, but you have put yourself in that position. You could live an easy way, or you can push the boundaries. And so, back to the quote of be the change you wish to see in the world, I absolutely love and live by that motto. If I'm going to complain about something, it's not going to be on my couch with my arm on the armrest. I'm going to find a way to get at the table, and I'm going to find a way to have a voice that hopefully represents many people that, maybe don't have that opportunity. So, get yourself in positions of influence and try to affect change in a positive way. And I think that's what leading is. You're not being told what to do. You are finding areas that need to be fixed or need to be better. We're not the status quo kind of gals. So, again, grit goes a long way, and then be the change you wish to be. So make sure that voice is heard. That's all I got.
I would like to jump in after Erica. She's so humble. The first of so many different things. And one of the things I think is so powerful right now, the Women's Peace Security Act, I've given that out 10 times yesterday, Erica, to people who asked about it, because, to formulate, be in the Pentagon, have a 2-star general come out and, have as her lieutenant colonel signing in. It was a pleasure and honor to be there a couple of weeks ago. To have so many firsts that she's done, is because, like she said, not sitting on that couch and getting up and doing something to it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And for me, it was really about this organization. It was really about how we evolved. This is nothing compared to what the vision of doing what I'm doing now and what I thought it was going to evolve into, completely opposite of what I thought it was going to go and where it's going to go, and not opposite, but has taken so many turns. It became anything that someone said no to me, I said, I'll take it on. So your problem, you're being right sized out. You were too small of a company. You didn't have the bandwidth, or the government didn't have it, or the CFPB, or whatever it was. And so we evolved from just a real estate sector to a financial sector to everything that runs anything from the unhoused, which is the homelessness, to the family offices and everything in between. And everyone says, how can you take that on? Well, when you go to the number one thing is the banks, and they say, no, we don't, no, we have a department for women. I said, so could you show me where that is? And they said, well, the multicultural division down there, African-American, Hispanic, and Asian division. I said, the word woman was not mentioned anywhere in that conversation. So every single bank, every single entity I touched, push back, push back, push back. And this is 15 years ago. And I had to hit those doors and hit those doors for so many years. And finally they said, oh, well, Dodd-Frank came out with Section 342 and this happened, that happened. And now everyone wants to be a piece of the action. Everyone sees where we've been talking about all these years, but it became the in thing now. We're so asked to be part of every different ways, different levels, and being on stage in so many different platforms because I had to push, but no one saw the vision, the connectivity like you, Teresa. You know, I had never be in the position thinking I'd be here, but because of the position, what happened to me with the banking industry, what happened to me in all different layers, I'm now on the board of directors for SPACs. I'm on the board of directors on all these different platforms. So I'm on several different boards. And the idea is that because I have curated that experience that you can't replace because I didn't take no for an answer. That was like, I'm sorry, we're going to figure this out. And it became from be the doer, the worker, to understand what the pain points of being that level. So to your point, absolutely.
Yeah. It's easy to put up a mission statement and value statement in any organization, put a nice plaque, print it in beautiful font, but to live it by every day, every minute is a very different ball game. And so there's your passion and being that advocate of the women's voice in real estate, you know, you carried it for so many, it's all close to a decade now, Desiree? Or
It's actually been longer. So the organization's been around for 13 years. But for my own self, it's been around for almost 35 years. So the idea is that, you know, being the only girl that played water polo in 1971 in all of Southern California, it was something that, you know, you just did it and you became part of it. You didn't think of the gender issue. And so for this being this part that you talk about the change for the organization, it's really been within. It's just now more vocal. It's just more out there so people can be a part and collaborate and come as a safe space to have that conversation. How can we help you? Because if you think about it, all the diversity that's in this council, even the ladies who are not, all the incredible leaders that aren't able to be on the call, is that they can't sign bills like the SB 826. When we went to go get women on the boards, you know, in 2018, that Governor Brown signed, several of the women could not sign it because of their affiliation with who they worked with, but they could do it through us because of, you know, the bylaws and everything goes to corporate America. So that independence and not being controlled and monitored and you know, behooving to other people is because the core essence is why it is so important for the issues that are being handled. So we have no political affiliation. We're not behooving to any person. We're to the cause. And that's why it's been so incredibly powerful.
The picture behind you, the poster behind you itself is a compelling example. Every one of them is leading, is a leader who led by example. And when you see that, you realize how visually it is compelling, and it tells everyone who looks at it and says, if they can do it, I can do it too. That it inspires them in so many different ways. So thank you for doing this, Desiree, and we are all delighted to be part of this. So Kelly and Tasha, what lessons would you like to, you know, I do want us to highlight, it's not always easy. So I think people who are joining us from far and wide should get some tips and pointers from us, how hard it has been and what has helped you stay the course.
Yeah, that's a good question. And, you know, there's been a lot of great words used today. I mean, grit, vulnerability, humility, courage, bravery, all those types of things. But sometimes it's just darn scary. Like, it's scary because sometimes your career is on the line. And sometimes you do get fired for being brave. And sometimes you are the one that's pointed out as the nonconformist. And, you know, so again, I think leading by example, you know, is such a big topic, and there's just so much to talk about in that. But I always think about a couple questions, you know, when you are in a leadership role of any type, you know, ask yourself, why are things the way they are? Make sure you have good answers to those. And then how can they get better? And if you're always really working on how to make them better, then typically people are going to be following you because they want to make things better too. Nobody wants to stay in a state of, disillusionment or negativity or anything. People are looking for leaders. People want good, positive, strong leaders. So if you're asking those types of questions all the time, you typically are finding things that need to be fixed, and you're finding, how you're going to fix them. And then you work as a team to put that together, and then people push you forward. I always say, there are leaders who want to climb on people's backs to get ahead. If you can get your people to push you forward, then you've got a great leadership quality that they're really following. So I'll turn it over to Tasha and let her chime in too.
Yeah, I would just simply say you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Wayne Gretzky's famous quote, and I repeat that all the time to myself and to anyone else that will listen, because I'm always in awe. Like, first of all, like, how did I even end up here in the job that I have? Like, I literally don't know the answer to that. And I am open with that, with sharing that to my teammates. I live in awe of sort of the talent of the folks that I get to interact with. Like, they seem to be so much more together for, their age. Many of them have a total plan, like an architecture that they have in mind for their career. But sadly, so many of them live in fear that they're going to mess up on that little thing or that project that we're asking them to do, or, oh, I don't have training on that. And I'm like, gosh, you guys, like, you have no idea how farther advanced you are than I was at your spot. Take that shot. Don't be scared to try something you've never tried. Don't even question it. Just try it. Just do it. Push yourself. I really think, like, women, especially, sadly, there's dozens of studies that say when you're looking at a job description and considering whether you're qualified or not, women, if they don't meet 100% of the requirements, don't even apply. But men do if they meet less than 70. So we have to encourage future female leaders to think critically about that very fact, that they enter sort of the world of possibility with a handicap. And so they need to push themselves to move beyond the fear of what could go wrong, to think around the idea of what could go right, and what that impact could have on your life. And so I'm super passionate about repeating that mantra to all of the employees, but especially the female employees on my team.
Yeah.
That was always my soccer saying, by the way, Tasha.
Yeah.
Take that shot. Take that shot. You're gonna make a goal.
Yeah, and pass that ball too.
That's
but take that shot.
Yes, don't be afraid. Take that shot. You're gonna make it.
That means you don't wait for someone else to raise their hands, and that has been my experience. That we have to break new ground in terms of establishing parity. Whether women raise their hands or they lean in or not, as leaders, we don't have to wait for them to lean in and ask and then provide the equity and recognition that they so deserve. Rather, we can be the first one to recognize the merits and provide the opportunities. Mm-hmm. So as a technologist, you have always been in the minority, and it has always been you have to push yourself beyond what you're even comfortable often. And I wanted to change that in my organization so that people don't have to clamor and elbow each other, that things are available for anyone's taking in an equitable fashion. So striving for parity should be part of our leadership by example. So Desiree, I know usually you'll pipe in and say it's time to go. So I want to thank everyone who joined us here, all the leaders, amazing insights. And I think our middle name is authentic. Each one of us, we are never shy of sharing what we have experienced. So I want to thank broadly everyone on the online who has joined us. Thank you for being with us. And please don't forget to check us out. All the wonderful, informative, insightful broadcasts that we have done since last December 2020. So Desiree, over to you in closing.
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you, everyone. Everything's on YouTube, so we have a full channel for the NDILC. So We have several videos from back in the, and shows from our conferences that are out there. So, and it's interesting to see from 2018, 2019, 2017, how those conferences that we talked about are so relative to now, you know, because each time we had a different subject matter and different things going to it. And if you think about our 2019 conference, it was the last one we had in person, you know, we talked about aging population, the healthcare, and the quality of life. And here we are, we're still talking about it 2 years later. And it's going to be a continuing conversation every day, every year for the rest of our lives, because, you know, we're not 20, let's be real here. And the aging population is only getting older. And as far as the, hence called the aging population, but the younger than 5, now we're at 9 or 10, that the aging population is older, has more in the United States as far as people, and it's going to be up to 18 here pretty soon. So if you think about it, we really have to address this issue of what's going on. So that being said, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all. And we're going to continue a series, and we're going to continue it for the starting it again back up in December. It's going to be, now we're going to be bringing books. So the idea is we've laid the foundation. So each one of us are going to bring our favorite book to really relate to each of the principles. So we're really excited about that, because several of us are bookworms that just love, love, love. And that's going to be phenomenal. But before we go, we have the next 2 months. We're going to be focusing on, one's going to be Heal the Earth. And we're talking about the other one being some form of wealth. So with the next 2 months, we're going to come back, and we're going to come up and we're going to display that. So make sure you chime in at same time, same channel. It's the first Thursday every single month that we air these, and these are at 9 p.m. 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, noon Eastern Time. And the cool thing is that you can see all these on YouTube, on Anchor, all the different places that it's live, on Facebook Live. And the idea is that please chime in, because these stories and what we bring here, instead of having in-person or private meetings, the reason we air these is we want you to see how incredible the curation is to all of us, to build on each other. And also it helps us to feel and be energized, because every time I get off these calls, I'm like, yes, I'm ready to take the world on, because it brings together the energy. It just drives us. So thank you all. From the bottom of my heart, for being part of the council and giving your undivided, incredible tenacity and work and ethics and leadership, because I believe authenticity is really about who we are, but also the fact that we share and help lead by example. So thank you very much, Chitra, for hosting. And everyone, please be safe and be healthy in the times that we're through, because it's going to be something we're going to have to just deal with. And most importantly, be our real selves to go with it. So thank you all. Have an incredible day, and we'll talk to you soon. See you later.
Have a great Labor Day weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yes,
Bye.
very true. Bye-bye.